In this video, I will show you how to use Git and GitHub for maintaining your laboratory experiments. What is Git? Git is a distributed version control system for tracking changes in any set of files, originally designed for coordinating work among programmers cooperating on source code during software development. Its goals include speed, data integrity, and support for distributed, non-linear workflows. Now, what is GitHub? GitHub is a code hosting platform for version control and collaboration. It lets you and others work together on projects from anywhere. This is how Git and GitHub work together in a software development environment. The software Git is installed in every developer's computer, whereas GitHub is software available on a centralized server. Software developers can work together as a single project by sharing their code through GitHub. There are 4 components involved when we use Git for our projects: working copy, staging area, local repository, and remote repository. Working copy is a folder where files are stored for editing purposes. Then, staging area, it is a place where files are pointed before moving to the local repository. In the local repository, all the tracked files are stored. It is located in the developer's system. The remote repository is located on a server. Developers can push their code to the server or they can pull the code from the server. We use the command git add to move the files from the working directory to the staging area. Files from staging area are moved to the local repository using the command git commit followed by comments. The local repository maintains the tracked versions of the files. When the developer wants to store the files on the server, he uses the command push. The clone command or pull command can be used to copy the files from the server to the local repository. These are the frequently used commands in Git. Git config user.name command is used to specify the developer's name in the Git. Git config user.email command is used to specify the developer's email in the Git. You have to use your name and your email ID. Git config command is used to view the current Git configurations. This is the syntax for using the git push command. This is the syntax for using the git add command. Git commit is used by using this command. Git status command is executed to view the status of the current repository. To view the history of changes in the current repository, git log command is used. This is the workflow we follow when we use Git in our projects. Initially, we fork the repository, which brings a copy of the project to our GitHub user account. Cloning the repository, download a copy of the project from the GitHub server to our local machine. We can use any IDE or editor to edit our files. It may be Visual Studio Code or any other. After making changes in the files, we need to move the files to the staging area using the command git add. Then we execute the command git commit to store the files in the local repository. We repeat these 2 steps again and again until the task is completed. Then we use the command git push to store the files in the GitHub server. It allows the other software developers to access the code. Now we are going to see how to do our lab experiments with Git. I am opening our learning management website. We have to find the assignment for submitting the laboratory experiment. This is the experiment to develop a web server to display about top 5 programming languages. To submit this assignment, you need a GitHub repository URL and PDF file of your laboratory report. We are going to see how to create both a GitHub repository and a laboratory report. You have to click this Add Submission button to submit your assignment. When you submit your experiment here, you need to mention the repository URL and the PDF attachment. We have given you a template repository. From here you have to start the work. Now, I am opening the template repository. Here we have given the template report format, and you have to make the necessary changes as per the experiment description. You can see the user account and the name of the repository here. The very first step is to make a fork of this template repository to your GitHub account. You have to click this fork link to make a copy of this repository to your GitHub account. You will be asked to log in. Here you have to enter your GitHub username and password. See, we are still in the template repository. So, we need to click the fork link one more time. Now, you are in your forked repository, and you got a copy of this repository in your GitHub account. To make a clone of this repository, in your local computer, you need the URL of this repository. So, we are copying the URL from here. Now, I am creating a new folder, my first experiment, in my documents. I use this folder to store my experiment files. There is no file inside this folder. Now I am opening the Visual Studio Code. Again, you need to open the terminal inside Visual Studio Code. By default, it opens PowerShell. But we need to change it to the command prompt by clicking this command. Now, you are in the command prompt. You can list the contents by executing the command dir. Again, I am moving into the Documents folder using the command cd, and then listing the contents using the command dir. Here, I have already created the folder My First Experiment. I am moving into the My First Experiment folder. There is no content inside this folder now. Now, I am cloning the repository from GitHub to my local computer by executing the command git clone followed by the repository URL. The repository URL I already copied from GitHub. Again, I am moving into the repository folder to see the contents. Here I have only one file, readme.md. You can also see this file in Windows Explorer. It has come from the GitHub repository. In this readme.md file, we keep the contents of our laboratory report. Now, I am opening the local repository folder in Visual Studio Code. You can see the readme.md file here. The preview of the readme.md file can be activated by clicking the preview button. Now, I am changing the experiment aim as per the given question. We use Markdown language to format the readme.md file contents. By adding a hash symbol followed by a space to the title, we can change the subtitle font size. We have made a few changes in the readme.md file, but it is not saved. This white dot indicates unsaved files. You can save this file by pressing Ctrl+S or by clicking Save from the File menu. The white dot disappears once the file is saved. Now, I am opening the terminal from the File menu and choosing the command prompt. Here, make sure that you are in your repository folder. The next step in the Git workflow is adding the files to the staging area. I am executing git add-a to add all the files in the current directory to the staging area. Now, we need to move the files from the staging area to the local repository. I am executing the command git commit-m followed by the comments or the reason for committing the files. See, we have not yet configured our repository with our user account details. So, you need to configure the Git by mentioning your name and your email ID using these commands. First, I am configuring the email ID. Here, you have to use your email ID. Second, I am configuring the name. Here you have to mention your name. You can move to the previously executed commands by hitting the up arrow and the down arrow keys. You can view the configurations by executing the git config -list command. Now, again, I am committing the files to the local repository by executing the git commit command. You can see the history of changes in the repository by executing the git log command. You can hit enter to view more history, or hit Q to exit and return back to the command prompt. On my GitHub repository homepage, I still have the old contents. The changes I have made in the AIM are not reflected on GitHub. Because I have made the changes only in my local repository, in my computer, and I have not yet pushed it to the server. To push the contents from my local repository to the GitHub server, I have to execute the command git push. This will ask you to log into your GitHub account. Here you have to use your GitHub username and your password. Click the Allow button. Now, Visual Studio Code is asking permission to access your GitHub account. Click the Continue button. You can see the summary of the push command report here. To view the updated readme.md file in the GitHub, you need to refresh the page. See now, the experiment AIM is updated on the GitHub repository homepage. Now, we can start adding our project files to our local working folder. If you click the Explorer tab in the Visual Studio Code, you can see the files inside your local working folder. Here you have to right-click and create a new file, my.web-server.py. Double-clicking on the file allows you to edit the file in the right-side editor. Here, you can type your code. See, I have written the code to listen at port 8080. After that, you have to execute the code by clicking the Run Code button. Choose Allow Access. Now, you can see the server started running. I am opening the web browser to send the request to my server. The URL for my server is http:// followed by local IP address then port number, here in my case it is 8080. Now, I am getting the response sent by my server. You can see the HTML source code sent by the server by right-clicking and selecting the View Source menu. From the client side, in the browser, you can view only the HTML source code, but you cannot view the server-side Python code. This is the place where I have typed all my HTML code inside the server-side Python code. Every time when the request is received by the server, here we can see a message printed from do-get method. You can stop the server by right-clicking on the output window and choosing the Stop Code Run menu. Now, I have to include my project code in my readme.md file so that I can use it for my report. I am copying the code and pasting it in my readme.md file under the code section. We can see the preview in the preview window. See, the format in the preview is not aligned properly. I have to use the proper markdown to format the code. So, I am downloading the markdown syntax by searching Google. Here you find the various options available in the markdown language. I am going to use fenced code block. This is indicated with 3 back quotes. The back quote key is located near the escape key on the keyboard. We have to open the fenced code block using 3 back quotes and then close the fenced code block using another set of 3 back quotes. Now, you can see the properly formatted code inside the preview window. The next process is to push the new changes to the GitHub server. To do that, we have to ensure the files are saved and committed to the local repository. So, from the terminal, I am moving all the modified files to the staging area using git add command. Then, I am committing the changes to the local repository using the git commit command. You can view the repository log using the git log command. Now, I am pushing all the modified files to the GitHub server using the git push. We have to refresh the GitHub repository homepage to view the updated content. Now, the code is appearing in the proper format. You can also see the additional Python file inside the GitHub repository. Now, I have to include the screenshot of client-side output and server-side output in the readme.md file. So, I am running the server again. Again, refreshing the client page. You can take the screenshot of the server-side output by pressing the print screen key on the keyboard and then pasting it in the Paint application by pressing Ctrl+V. I have to save the output image inside the repository. So, I am creating a folder, Images, inside the repository. Now, I am saving the output image inside the Images folder as serveroutput.png. I have to include the client-side output in the report, so I am taking the browser screenshot by pressing the print screen button again. Now, I create a new image in the Paint application and paste the screenshot by pressing Ctrl+V. Again, I am saving the image as clientoutput.png inside the Images folder. Now, you can see these two files inside the Images folder. The next step is to include the output images under the Output section of the readme.md file. I include server-side output under server-side output heading and client-side output under client-side output heading. From the Markdown cheat sheet, I am copying the images syntax. Pasting the images syntax in the readme.md file. I have to mention the actual image path. Our output images are located inside the Images folder under our current repository. So, I am mentioning the path as a dot followed by /images, followed by name of the server-side output image file. Don't forget to mention the dot in the path. This is the text which will be displayed on the client side if the image is not available. Now, immediately, you can see the server-side output image in the preview window. The same steps you need to repeat for the client-side image. Now, you have to write the result for this experiment. The next step is to push the modified contents to the GitHub server. This can be done by adding files to the staging area, committing the changes to the local repository, then pushing the files to the GitHub server. Now, if you refresh the GitHub repository homepage, you can see the report contents with code, output images, and the result. Now, we have to prepare the PDF report for submission purposes. I am selecting the contents, starting from the experiment title up to the result. Then, pressing Ctrl+P to print the document in PDF format. Here, we have to choose Save as PDF as the destination and select the Selection Only checkbox. Then, click the Save button to save the web page as a PDF file. Now, you have to submit the assignment by mentioning the GitHub repository URL. I am copying the GitHub repository URL from here. Opening the assignment submission Moodle page, pasting the URL here, attaching the PDF document, then submitting the assignment by clicking the Save Changes button. So, you have learned how to use Git and GitHub to maintain your project. GitHub is a code hosting platform for version control and collaboration. Many recruiters validate the candidate profile by checking their GitHub page. You can open your GitHub profile page by clicking on the user account. Here, you can see your contribution history. Keep building your GitHub profile by contributing to many projects. Thanks for watching the video.